Welcome to our Red Belt level program for mastering ChatGPT. And if you're new here, you've jumped in almost at the end. We have our white, yellow, orange, green, blue, purple, and brown levels before this. And basically the idea of the Red Belt level is you're comfortable with the foundational skills of ChatGPT, and you're now looking at how do I strategically apply it. And we call our red belt people strategic optimizers. So white belt is where we start. We call that the overwhelmed observer. And our double black belt is the end of this cycle and the beginning of the next. We call those our empowered advocates because now you are so confident with ChatGPT, you're teaching others how to use it and implement it. So we're going to dive in. And I see the strategic optimizer. We have a new kind of AI at this level. I call it adulting intelligence. And all I mean by adulting intelligence is that you've got some common sense, you've got some confidence, and you're now applying the tools strategically rather than tactically or honestly as a novelty or a toy. So this is where we're going to get into the serious work. And here, the belief you should hold is that AI isn't just about saving time, it's giving your vision room to grow. So we will be being more and more strategic as we get to this level. And the insight here we want you to have is that your internal ChatGPT or AI fluency is a true competitive advantage for your entire team. And at this point, I would believe that you have demonstrated to yourself the return on investment and the value of ChatGPT, and you're moving forward. Now, one thing I want to say, I want to bust a myth right open. A lot of statistics say that 95% of AI projects fail or don't deliver return on investment. I am going to actually call foul on that, and I'm going to say that till somebody believes me. The reality is it's too vague. And number one, how does anyone know 100% of the projects out there? But really, let's just call it what it is. It's hype because they want to keep you in fear. They want you to buy into the scarcity and avoid AI because, quite frankly, the people who are denying AI as a value add, they have something else they want to sell you. Now, for me personally, I want entrepreneurs to embrace AI because I genuinely believe that when it's applied correctly, it can have a massive leverage impact on our businesses and on our lives. So for clarity, we're going to confirm and define how ChatGPT or other AI should be used across all roles in an organization. And for growth, we're going to establish a solid cultural foundation that is both innovation focused and safety driven. So this is the point where we put on our adulting hats and we need to combine innovation with safety. We need to have some guardrails. We need to make sure we're doing things that align with our vision and our growth plans. So here, the question we hear a lot is, how do I ensure my team is as efficient as I am and that we all speak the same language? And I will say this over and over. We are the adults in the room, so we are going to share how we use it. We're going to guide our team members. And I would encourage you, if you are a leader, have your team go through the belts that you've gone through to get here, because it's only when you build that foundation for security and confidence do people actually start to speak the same language. Now, for the record, you may want to abbreviate and compress that path. Maybe they don't need to know all the theory that you know, but at the very least, we need a adoption guide or something so that we all have the common vocabulary to describe what we're doing. So we are at the red belt stage. This is stage 7. Stage 0 is our white belt. Stage 7 is our 8th layer. And by now we've got a lot of foundation built underneath us. We've got a lot of critical infrastructure. And this is really the transition from the brown belt efficient integrator. You've optimized your own systems. Now we're at the strategic optimizer level, where we are going to standardize and scale AI fluency across your entire sphere of influence. Now, that might be lofty, but my vision, my goal is that you will share what you've learned about AI with your teams. And in a perfect world, I would encourage everybody to have workshops and share what you've learned with your clients. Your clients are hearing all of the lies and all of the hype and all of the noise, just like you are. You can either let them figure it out on their own and hope for the best, or you can guide them forward and build relationships. By the way, I love the concept of the strategic partners or spheres of influence. So if you've learned this much, why wouldn't you want to teach your strategic partners how you've implemented AI? And by the way, you don't need to come up with the material on your own. You're welcome to invite them into the Digital Dojo, which, yes, serves me. But really, truly, it's my mission to end the bad use of AI. So I'm happy to help others help others. So that's my mantra, my mission. Welcome to the red belt level. So here, your core objectives should be to foster that internal AI fluency and start to see it as a competitive advantage for your entire team and, quite frankly, your entire organization. Under clarity, we're going to define how AI should be used across all roles. And for growth, we're going to establish a cultural foundation for that innovation and safety. I repeat the objectives because I believe they're that important. Now, we're going to dive in, and you should be familiar with this by now. Our first critical step is the mindset badge. And this was deliberately created to give you the belief and awareness that you need in order to embrace this particular level. And the core focus that we have for the red belt level is building our AI fluency as a competitive advantage for our entire team. So if you've made it this far, and I hope you've done the work, put in the hours, done the homework, you should by now have custom GPTs that augment the authentic intelligence that your team brings to the mix. And you should be getting to the point where you're really comfortable that your entire team has embraced and is using ChatGPT. So that's what I'm hoping for. And now for this level, the insight that you as the leader need, whether that's organizational leader, team leader, is you need to start adopting what we're going to call the AI Policy Strategist Mindset. And this is honestly, in the industry, they talk about things. There's a concept called shadow IT. And basically, that is the tools and things that your employees bring into the organization, going around the natural internal controls that your IT department has set up. And so we're going to recognize that uncontrolled, non-standard AI use is truly a business risk. Standardized use is a competitive moat. So I'm seeing study after study that shows that employees are using ChatGPT, whether their employers want them to or not. So my advice, and pardon this graphic example, I went to a Catholic junior high school, and the teachers, quote unquote, taught us sex education. Their version was sex is bad, don't do it, period. Well, not surprising, that generated a whole bunch of kids are going to figure it out on their own and they're going to make mistakes. So surprise, surprise, in my school, as we got older, there was multiple teenage pregnancies, and not to mention multiple STDs or STIs or whatever they call them today. But basically, whenever you tell somebody, don't do this, it triggers a natural curiosity. And if you know that your employees are going to use ChatGPT with or without you, it is truly up to you to make sure they're using it well and show them the parameters and show them how to use it safely. So saying to your employees, we've banned AI, bad idea. Having a conversation with them and saying, here's what we believe AI can do, here's what we believe it can't do, here's our policies on it. Bring them into the discussion and get them to identify why and how they need it and how can they make sure it's being used safely. So I'll give you a really funny example. I see a lot of research and development companies that have bunkers. Literally, you've got to go through a checkpoint to get into the compound. You go through armed guards at a security gate. Once you get into the compound, then you have to have a swipe card or some sort of access key to get into the building. They use controls at different levels, locked doors, obviously. There's all kinds of sensors and security. And then once somebody's securely inside that bunker, all of the tech is locked down by passwords, and you've got firewalls and all of this stuff. Your server is disconnected from the world. Everything is secure. You've put all of this thought into bolting and barricading the front door. And then an employee comes in and types in the secret formula for your new invention or whatever, and it just literally walks out the back door completely unprotected. Now, for the record, I've been scanning, and so far ChatGPT has not figured out how they get the caramel inside the caramel bar. I'm sure that caramel secret is going to be spilled at some point by an eager consultant or researcher who is asking ChatGPT, how do I do this more securely? So one of the standards I have for my people is we never share anything with ChatGPT that is truly proprietary. Now, that might sound ominous, but the reality is there are things that you would share with other people and there are things you don't want shared. Now, old days when I was younger, they would say, don't do anything that would get you on the front page of the newspaper. I wouldn't share anything with ChatGPT that I wasn't prepared to see in the front pages of a digital newspaper tomorrow. So anything that's proprietary and truly unique to your business, never ever share with a tool like ChatGPT, even in the cases where you say, well, I'm not sharing my data to train the model. Be careful. So for tools and use cases like that, I am all in favor. I build private LLM models that are 100% secure. They're entirely resident behind my firewall on my server. If I care enough to protect the data, I should care enough to protect analysis of said data. So that's where we get into some policy strategies. Here in the mindset, we need to understand the role matrix. And in our organization, we start with the red belt. We're going to define the top 3 high leverage AI use cases for at least 2 distinct roles that are not the owners. So for example, if I'm the owner and I have a head of marketing or head of sales and a head of HR, I am going to create 3 high leverage use cases for 2 of those roles. So a total of 6. And basically what we're going to do as an organization is start to identify the different needs and risks for each role. So why are they different? What can we do to support them? And at this point, I encourage most of my people, if you have not done one, at least draft what we call the AI safety charter. And this should be something simple, something memorable, and we'll call it just a 3-point internal AI usage policy for our team. And here we should cover data privacy, human peer-to-peer review. Maybe we're going to look at what the tone and the voice adherence looks like. But really, truly, if we don't plan for AI usage, it's just going to spring up like a bunch of weeds, and then we're going to have to try and control it after the fact. So my mission here is to get you aware that AI has this incredible power for leverage. Things like I create SOPs. If somebody were to find my SOPs, who cares? They're not going to know why I did them the way I did them. They're not necessarily going to get everything in them. But still, they're also not going to get the strategy behind it. Or, again, they're not going to get all of the pieces. But again, if I'm going to share client data, for example, I'm obligated, I believe, to anonymize it before I send it up into any other platforms. And just the last thing on that note, Sam Altman, head of OpenAI, which is the company behind ChatGPT, has already publicly said that they are monitoring conversations as needed, and questionable conversations that may impact breaking laws or the risk of harm to others or ourselves, they can and will report those conversations to the authorities. So if you think that the stuff you put into ChatGPT is private, it's not, just for the record. All right, let's talk about the skill set badge. And this is where we're building tools and technique, and we're going to practice. The red belt, in my opinion, is probably the most critical turning point. Up till now, we've been building confidence, we've been learning and mastering ourselves. Here, we're starting to look at our team. And so this is really the first area where we actually require team to be part of the conversation. And for the record, team can be people who work for you, people you work with. It can be friends, family, it can be colleagues, it can be peers. I don't really care what the group is. What I care about is the teaching aspect. So here, for insight, I believe that your highest leverage skill at this red belt level is no longer just basic prompting, but you're teaching others to prompt effectively and safely. And in so doing, you're teaching and establishing a shared language. Language is really, really important to me. I get hung up on the exact words I use. I care about the meaning, and I find I get really annoyed with people when they're certain in their certainty that this is the right word and this is the right thing to do. And when we get to the root of it, they're totally ignoring the whole point of it. So I believe we owe it to ourselves and to our community to show to use a shared language. All right. Now for clarity, this is where we start to build out standardized templates. You've probably found by now that you have at least 5 reusable prompt templates. In the green belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, we optimized. And so we're now going to refine those for a beginner user. And we're going to get really clear on how we instruct others to follow our prompts. And really simple output or a prompt style, a template, is make sure that we are focusing on the role, the context, and output, what the output looks like, and what quality assurance are we doing on the output. So we're going to teach people by walking them along the same path we followed. And again, I encourage you, don't reinvent the wheel. Use the tools we've built for the Digital Dojo. Bring others through the dojo so that they can understand what you're trying to accomplish and where you're at. And by the way, the reason I built the dojo is there are millions of people out there saying this is the only way to use ChatGPT. My way is the best way. Learn my prompts and you'll get rich. I want to cut through the hype, and I want people with common sense to rise above the noise. And so one of the things, my vision for this is a community of people who are adults. And by that, I mean we have common sense and we've got some experience. We are using AI responsibly and safely while we are pursuing our dreams, and we are innovating and changing to make the world a better place. So the growth level of our skill set badge is to create a hybrid workflow audit. And we've walked through this before, but here you're going to select a critical cross-functional business workflow and successfully map out both the human and the AI steps. And what we're looking at, and I think this is, I first understood this through Tony Robbins. He had a lesson, a teaching that he did a long time about the value chain within a business. And sometimes the biggest friction points are the handoffs from one department to another. So we have thus far, up till the red belt, we've really focused on one department, one functional area, one role. Now we need to see that our tasks and our processes and our systems are truly bridges between departments, not friction points. So we're going to look at confusion between departments, and we want to eliminate errors in a shared team environment. And by the way, I think one of the biggest sources of internal friction is when we assume that the other department knows what we're giving them, why we're giving it to them, when we're giving it to them, how we're giving it to them. And it fascinates me. I've worked in multi-billion-dollar companies where there's always this traditional friction between marketing and sales. And really, truly, I think most of that friction is, number one, children fighting over scraps of a budget because they don't know how to meet their objectives without more budget. But really, truly, it's this misunderstanding of what marketing delivers. My definition is really simple. Marketing gets the prospect's attention. Sales's job is to take that attention and turn it into a client. Now, if marketing and sales are in unison and in sync, those steps become smoother, and turnover in the employee realm disappears. But we also reduce rejection rates on prospect to client conversion, and quite frankly, we enhance employee retention. So one of the things I do in my world is I build cross-functional teams who is there not to represent their team, but to represent our client. And basically, we want to watch how a client filters through our system. And, to oversimplify, we're looking for areas where prospects fall out of the bucket or clients don't make it through to the end. So we want to patch all of the holes in the bucket so that our client experience is seamless. And by the way, if we make the client experience seamless, our employee journey is actually better too. Therefore, we're going to keep more of our best employees. In the gear set, we're focused on systems and flow. So the core focus here is establishing a cultural foundation for innovation and safety. And I just want to share, I believe that we can create systems and processes all day long, but if the culture doesn't support adherence to them, we've wasted our time and energy. So personally, I believe in a culture that is focused on how do we serve our customers better. We're all on the same team. We all have the same mission: deliver wow to our customers. Now, we cannot deliver wow if we don't innovate, and we cannot innovate and survive to deliver wow if we don't do it safely. So innovation in my world is a cultural value in and of itself. Innovation is not just creating new products, it's increasing and improving our existing delivery so that we add more value to our customer throughout the journey. And safety is a given. I don't say it enough, but really, truly, everything we've talked about through the first several belts of our digital dojo and everything we talk about right through to our double black belt is about doing things safely and securely. So here we want to focus on insight where centralization is scalability. So in my experience, and I've seen this in large organizations and small, I see it a lot where individual team members have their own individual systems. They've tailored it to them, and everybody's trying to accomplish the same goal with different tools, with different. It makes it almost impossible if somebody leaves or goes on vacation. It's almost impossible for someone else on the team to cover. So we see the advantage of scalability being lost when even large teams break down into little individual fiefdoms where individuals have their own specific goals and ways of accomplishing their outcomes. So as an organization, we want to get into the habit and ensure that all critical assets are centralized. Now, again, I find it fascinating because a lot of organizations, they say we are built on teamwork. However, everything they reward is individual performance. So one of the things I encourage is an actual cultural foundation for teamwork. Now, you've probably heard me say this at least once or twice. I believe that we have to reward the behavior we want repeated. I am not in the business of using punishment to eradicate bad behavior. That feels really exhausting to me. I believe in rewarding good behavior. And if we reward the right behaviors and we have the right rewards, bad behavior just vanishes because it's better to do the right things and get the reward than it is to not. So we want to encourage and require and build that culture where everybody brings their critical assets to the central hub for scalability and security. And again, if you've got larger teams, I like to have small groups. I'll have, again, this is oriented towards fixing the business, not running the business. I'll have small teams where we'll have one team leader and then maybe five members from different functional teams. And the idea is let's identify one friction point and tackle it as a team. And then each person from that specialist team goes back to their functional areas and presents the solutions that they've built. So basically, none of this is something that management is imposing on the team. This is something that the team members are building for one another. So we want to keep it real and we want to make sure everybody is getting the benefit of that. Now, for clarity, we have team hubs. And I think I've shared this before. I'll share it again. I have a centralized shared digital hub. In my case, it's a dedicated folder within my company's Google Drive. You might prefer something like Notion, but we have our standardized template library. We have our processes, our system for creating processes. We have our safety charter, and of course, we have usage policies. And I take the approach of more of a professional guidance. It's more about why we do what we do rather than here's step by step, do this, don't do that. I believe if we focus on principles and give people the understanding of why we have those principles, they don't need the step by step to don't do whatever. And really, it's pretty clear what is acceptable use versus what is not acceptable use. So you want to make sure everybody is on board and understands that. Now, for growth, we have custom GPTs, and we've deployed at least one in our purple or brown belt levels. Here you're going to focus on team GPT deployment. And what we're encouraging, again, you decide what team means to you in this case. Like I said, it might be a team in your organization, it might be colleagues, peers, family, friends, whatever. But the key is we want at least 3 individuals on the team and ensure they all have access and understand the purpose of the shared system. So this is where you are practicing as a red belt. You're the leader and you're guiding others on how to properly use and implement the shared system. And this is a gold mine. I want you to understand this. And one of the things we do, we build checklists and templates and things like that. But in this small team environment, you, as the red belt, are the leader. And what you want to listen for and you want to take note of is any questions that people have about how do I do this? How do I do that? Where do I go for this? All of those questions. The question mark is my favorite consulting tool. It's also my favorite punctuation. The reason I love the question mark is it tells me that I haven't solved all of the pain and there's still some friction or gaps to be solved. So write down all the questions you get. Those questions are opportunities to improve going forward. And basically, you're going to write those questions down and look later with your team as to where in all of your wonderful tools and documentation the answers to those questions should be. Now, you will notice in the Digital Dojo, I have a 50-minute theory course, and that was intentional by design. I've narrowed it down to the 5 badge levels, the 5 things that I need people to learn to understand that skill level. And then I always have a bonus 50-minute frequently asked question range. And that's basically the questions I got after we taught the theory the first time around. These are the questions people didn't understand. The next time I record and update the theory, those frequently asked questions will be embedded wherever they need to be. But the idea was I give you the theory so you can start implementing today. If you have questions, hopefully they're one of the 10 that I've heard the most. And down the road, I've got my top 10. We will record more, let's call them frequently asked questions sort of responses. Going forward, the tool I'm going to use is we're going to record one video to answer each question. So for now, I just aggregated the top 10, but going forward, my goal is to have a short 2-3 minute, maybe 5 minute if needed, but short videos, one video, one question, one answer. And then over time, we can find ways to implement that into the system in better and different ways. All right. The community badge is all about collaboration. And I can't stress this enough. We are learning to lead by learning to teach. And we learn to lead and we learn to teach by leading and teaching. It's interesting. Funny how that works. So the core focus here is coaching and mentoring people around you to multiply mastery. Now, what we do, and you will see this as we grow, right now I am the leader of the Digital Dojo. This is my my ecosystem that I've built. My goal as this builds and grows and progresses is to bring people in, teach them, bring them up to the red belt level, and then they're going to run classes of their own. And again, all of this is to multiply mastery. This is not about me saying I'm smarter than anyone else. This is me saying, I really want to help the world. How can I do that? And I believe I can do that. My greatest gift I can give to humanity is to identify what mastery looks like and then find ways to multiply it. So for insight, mentorship is multiplication. This is actually part of our dojo manifesto. If you haven't seen that yet, there's a video out there about it. I'll make sure everybody gets a link to that. But really, the reason the Digital Dojo exists is I'm fed up with the nonsense and the garbage and the noise from the brobots. And also, I'm actually deeply concerned. There is a term called AI slop. Some people go as specific as ChatGPT slop. Basically, that's the garbage in, garbage out. And my revelation as an academic, I believe in knowledge and truth. If we're not, as a society, checking these things, really, truly, the noisy, I don't know if I should say this word, I'm going to. The noisy morons out there are making all of us dumber. And worse, they're actually making the AI models dumber, because what happens is somebody goes into ChatGPT, says, ChatGPT, write me a script on how to get rich using ChatGPT. And unfortunately, ChatGPT starts replicating that garbage because millions of people around the world are regurgitating the exact same garbage and training the model that that's acceptable. Now, I talk about adulting intelligence. We are going to look at things critically and go, that doesn't make sense, or it does. So I believe that mentorship, and that's why we built the dojo, we can guide others. And I can't fight stupid. Stupid will win every time. It's more abundant than I am. It's more patient. It's got more energy. And quite frankly, it's better funded. But if I can shine a light of wisdom out into the world, and I can help people actually become masters and then share that with others, I believe that is my moral victory, and it's also my calling. And as I see it, the truest test of mastery is the ability to transfer it successfully to others. Now, before you think I'm some sort of strange altruistic person who, I'm not a monk, I'm not a communist, I like money, I'm doing this as a business, but really, truly, I believe people mentored me in my life and helped me get where I am. So I believe that I have a moral obligation to help others. And if I can do that, where I can then teach those others how to help others, this becomes a righteous circle, a cycle of growth and positivity. And one of the foundations of all I believe in that supports the Digital Dojo and our manifesto is the theory of the go-giver, as shared by Bob Berg and John David Mann in their book series, The Go-Giver. So if you haven't read that, I highly recommend it. But really, truly, I believe I can't fight stupid, but I can light the lamp that helps somebody discover brilliance. So I want to light people's lamps and guide them. And by the way, Pharos is Greek for lighthouse. It's based on the Greek for lighthouse. And from there, it's also the original lighthouse at Alexandria. We believe our mantra is insight, clarity, growth. And my goal is to light the way to guide people safely to wherever business success is for them. So for clarity, we're going to teach people how to host AI Q&A sessions. And I highly recommend you do this with your team or with your network or your community, and just host a live 30-minute training or Q&A session for a small group. And we start small because I recognize a lot of my people are introverts or shy. Have at least 3 people and present your hybrid workflow audit and address any fears or challenges with adoption. So for the record, this works best internally if you're hosting your team. But if you don't have a team and you're a solopreneur, you're not left behind. You can do it with, quite frankly, I would encourage you, ask me, ask somebody on the team. We welcome you to share this with our entire community. You'll get more personal gratification out of teaching white belts, but if you want to share this with other red belts, you'll get more refined feedback. I value all feedback, so I'm happy to teach at all levels. And the reason I built this belt system was so that I could know at a glance where somebody was, and I would know how to help them. So finally, under growth, we're talking about certification. And really, truly, this is not as formal as it sounds, but we want you to successfully coach at least one individual, preferably more, through the use of one of your standardized template library prompts and receive their verbal or written confirmation that they are now confident in using the prompt or system independently. Now, the key here is they are confident and they're able to do what we hope they could do through it. And this is going to sound strange, and it's going to sound the opposite of what I've said about how we want to grow. My advice here is don't rush it. Everybody, and myself included, I like to get through things so that I can, get the certificate and say, okay, I did this. Enjoy the journey. And really, this is not some esoteric thing, but basically, if you're not enjoying the journey and you're not having fun along the way, I would wonder, what is the purpose of the journey? So I like to do things that I enjoy. I like to work with people I enjoy. I encourage you to do the same. And here's a little secret. The more you enjoy it, the more you're going to learn and the more you're going to teach and impact others. So if your goal is more impact and to help others, slow down, enjoy the journey. Now, the final badge is our attitude badge. And this is where, again, we bring up respect and consistency. And I love martial arts. It depends on the tradition and it depends on the art itself. But most that I've experienced, there is a certain amount of ceremony, a certain amount of tradition. Things like bowing when you enter a training space, bowing to your instructor, bowing to your classmates. It is all about respect. And I want to really, really hammer this home. You've heard it multiple times, but respect applies. We have to respect ourselves. We have to respect our community. We have to respect our learning, and we have to respect our tools. And part of how we demonstrate respect is being consistent in how we show up and how we practice. So I think it was Malcolm Gladwell. He was credited with the concept that mastering a skill requires at least 10,000 hours of intentional practice. And I think that's critical. A lot of people hear 10,000 hours of practice and they practice going through the motions and they go, why am I not mastering this? It's because how you practice is how you do everything. So if you're practicing and you're not practicing with respect and intention and consistency, you're not going to get the results. And by the way, the core focus, leading with safety and ethical responsibility, if you're not practicing safety yourself, if you're using unethical approaches, guess what? How you practice is how you perform later. So we want to, if you think about it, we want to behave the way we behave if nobody was watching. We want to lead with being safe and ethical. So at this level, I hope by now you feel really, really confident. I want you to understand that true mastery requires humility. And you must model the attitude of skepticism towards AI. By now, I'm going to be honest, when you first start out, you probably have the enthusiasm of a religious convert. You might be fanatical, but by now I hope you've learned that you are the adult in the conversation, and you should always respect the need for human review. You should always be checking for bias, and always make sure you're ethically using the tools the way they were meant to be used. And for what it's worth, this is a space where now you're going to feel a little bit of skepticism. You're going to challenge the tools. And my hope for you is this is a tipping point in something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. So what is the Dunning-Kruger effect? It has two aspects to it. The first aspect is a novice at a new skill tends to overestimate their abilities because they don't know what they don't know. So what that means is when you first start using ChatGPT, you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm a god, I'm brilliant, I'm a genius. ChatGPT told me so. I know everything. And that's when you go out and you sound like a religious convert telling everybody, oh, you got to use this tool and here's why. And I'm the smartest person. Listen to me, listen to me. By the way, don't look behind the curtain because I don't actually know what I'm talking about, but listen to me. And the interesting thing about Dunning-Kruger is in the novice stage, people who don't know what they don't know tend to be very loud and vocal about the things they think they know. Now, the tipping point, and I find this absolutely fascinating, people in the dojo, it seems to be at the red belt, and I think this is where I had this moment. This is the moment where, as an expert, so we talked about the novice, now we're talking about the expert. As an expert, we go, holy crap, there is so much I don't know. And it is interesting because as an expert, we overweigh what we don't know versus what we know that we know. So there's a bias towards the stuff we don't know is a big responsibility. We need to master it. We forget all of the stuff that we've mastered. So interestingly, I say this is the tipping point because it's where the novice learns humility and we start to develop respect for the tool. At my early days, I was excited. I thought everybody should use ChatGPT. And then I realized at some point, not everybody should, not everybody can. But my goal now is for everybody who ChatGPT makes sense for, I'm going to show them how to use it well. So I've stopped trying to convert people to the ChatGPT religion. I've just found that those who follow it as much as I do, let's find ways to be better and do better and teach others to do the same. So for clarity, we are going to work on our own bias checks, and we're also going to look for bias in our use cases and in our outputs. So what we do at this level to earn the attitude badge is we select at least one. Again, everything is a recommendation, not a minimum, not a maximum. It's a recommendation. So select one recent high leverage output from one of your custom GPTs and intentionally run a check for potential bias or inaccuracy. And here we're being religious about documenting the identified risk and the necessary human correction. Now, this is not about doom and gloom. This is not about, oh, look, I told you AI was stupid. I told you ChatGPT hallucinates. What we're looking at, and I want you to understand this, ChatGPT is a large language model. It was created by humans. It was trained by humans on human content. So if for some reason you believe that humanity doesn't have biases, I believe somebody once identified something like 183 known biases that were common enough we named them. You're deluding yourself and others by ignoring bias. And the beautiful thing here, and this is where I get excited, when we can identify and believe it or not, have a process to identify bias, we can correct for it. There are a lot of things, and you just look at the average English language that the average person uses, there are a lot of words that are biased or mean different things depending on where in the world you are, where you hear it. I'll give you one really radical example. The word Christmas to certain Christians, it's a festivity, it's a celebration, it's a time to get together with friends and family. Other parts of the world, Christmas brings up images of people who've colonized and forced their culture upon them. It's all about loss and tragedy. And again, it's used as the same word and it sounds the same. It's just entirely different depending on who's receiving it. So we want to understand and identify risk and be able to correct it. And then the final element of the attitude badge is growth. We have what we call the 90-day standard. And here we're going to build the habits and help you succeed. You're going to maintain the use of your team hub and run a weekly maintenance ritual. We talked about that in the brown belt for a full quarter. Now, when I say consecutive days, I'm talking about calendar, not business. So if you take weekends off, good for you. You're still in the running for consecutive if you do it over a 90-day period. So roughly 3 months, depending on whatever. I use it by quarter. It's up to you. And basically what you want to do, you're demonstrating to yourself and your team the cultural commitment to long-term standardization and strategic oversight. So if you're encountering this video out in the wild somewhere, we live in an age, I am making it available freely on platforms like LinkedIn and YouTube. If you encounter this video in isolation in the wild and you've got the theory, congratulations, welcome to the dojo. If you want to learn and actually practice with us, this is the paid version. You can go to pharosbusiness.com/digital-dojo and learn more about how we can collaborate and work together. My bias is I want to build cultures. I'm happy to teach others how to teach others. This is my mission, my calling, and the more people who take up this mission, the lighter the load is for all of us. So thank you, and I wish you all the best on your journey of mastery towards joining the dojo.